The activity book is available on my website as a downloadable print-off. It's $2.99. The wealth of knowledge you get in there is enormous, and I would love your children to do this. Children at Kids Learn Fast or Elisa's Tutorial School will do them for free. Here I'd like to introduce you to some of the aspects of that book so that you can go through it with me. And the front cover sort of varies, and there is a digital version on my website. I think that's coming up quite soon. My website designer is just working on that. So on the digital interactive, your children can actually type in the answers. But if you prefer, and that's the same price, if you prefer, you can download the printed copy and then fill it in at home. There are two activity books, one for younger children, which has a lot of drawing activities, and there's the older one, which is much more writing based. Both will inform your children immensely on general knowledge of all types, particularly in this book related to the moon, but in the whole series in general, we have the stars, we have the sun, we have the clouds, we have the oceans, and we have the snowy ice. So there are a lot more to come as well, but those are the start. Okay, Me and the Moon activity book. I'm going to take you through this slowly. I won't dwell on every page. The pages will be available for you to see at the bottom of this YouTube. But again, as with the storybook, we start with a proverb. When the cat's away, the mice will play. Each of my books has got a proverb. One of my activity books is full of proverbs, so your children can learn them, as I think they are very, very important. I explained the importance of mindfulness to my approach and to my school, and why I try and make your children mindful of their studies, taking into account their five senses, their sight, their hearing, their smell, their taste, their feel, so that they can put those senses into their story writing, and they can also relate to that when they are dealing with a description, or they're actually eating something like an apple. What does it feel like? What does it taste like? What does it crunch? Can they hear the crunch? So I really make children aware of all that, which I think is a very important part of the educational process. Now, your children will have already read the story. Part one is the story with a twist, and the reason being that your children get to write their own ending in the activity book to the mouse story, which I think they'll enjoy. But just taking you through the activity book, this is part one, which is very different to part two. You get to see the story again in the middle, but it's not coloured. It's just to remind you of the story so you can relate it to the activities. And on page 7, we've got an activity related to the man in the moon. There was a big thing about this the year before last on the John Lewis ad, and that gave me the idea for creating this conversation between your child and him, and popping it into this book, particularly because the whole book is about the moon. So, and I wrote this long before that John Lewis ad. Anyway, here we are, the man in the moon. Can you see a face in the moon? What about the size? What about the shape? And there we go with that page. As we proceed, we've got other things that we look at and examine. We've got a dustbin, which is always related to mice, because mice love looking for rubbish, and they usually get themselves in there, and it's usually overflowing. And here we've got some questions and descriptions of what type of bin your children would have put there in this park picnic area, and what sort of food mice would like to find in there. This is all about a mouse called Burley Mouse, and the reason being that my dedication is to Roy Burley, my friend, and so I've called him Burley Mouse in this book. We come to the cheese parts, which we've already seen in the story, and here we go through things that light up, because we've got the lighthouse, and I ask your children to think of other things they think light up. So there are answers at the back of most of these. If you need to see the answers, it does tell you. Some of it is just using your imagination and your scope of knowledge. And of course, when we get to the poacher's page, it's describe the scariest character you have read about in a book. Tell me the name of the book and write the description in the box above. So Roald Dahl writes about loads of scary characters, and I'm sure they can think of one they would like to write about. When we get to the wish page, Wish Upon a Star, then with Mr. Movie Moon, we get your children to make a wish. For me, the art of writing is just writing as much as you can. And if this book gives them scope for writing lots and lots of interesting things, and they practice their handwriting and they practice their full stops, commas and spellings, that's a big achievement. So again, related activities, and you get a chance to see a preview of these pages as we move along. We have some questions on food, we have some questions on the storm, on storms in general, thunder and lightning, and they can write a poem if they like. So we bring in all aspects of English into these activity books. Do a lot of opposites as well. Hot and cold is the start, and we go on to lots and lots of different opposites they can pop in the boxes provided. Again, lots of different activities, Old Wild Man Moon, mythical creatures known as werewolves. We don't want to scare anyone, but they like that. Fangs and claws, I'm sure your kids love all that, especially on Halloween. And unlucky things, why they would feel to be, what would make them the luckiest person in the world. Guide dogs, we talk about guide dogs, Labradors, different breeds. And as we leave this story, we get to them making up their own ending here, and a big mindfulness page where they have to consider things from a feelings point of view, and they have to answer in yes and no. As we proceed, we have lots more activities on food, on berries, on cheese, on fruits, what's healthy and what's not. And we get to part 2. Now, part 2 is more intensive and it's a lot more general knowledge based rather than related to the story. And we get introduction to the town mouse and the country mouse. We are given a menu that we have to write a starter in, a main course and a dessert. We get, because of Mr. Frosty Moon, some weather words. Blustery, hail, cold, ice. Some children don't know what a gale is, blowing a gale. So I've introduced language that I think your children should know and use in their descriptions. And here they can describe a winter's day. But I always tell my children in creative writing to start with the weather and to explain what the weather is like. That's such a good start. We go into Lucky Charms, we go into scary characters, and we go into a moon fact file. The moon fact file gives you everything you need to know, from the first man who stepped on the moon to what the months of the year related to the moon are. For instance, January is the wolf moon, June's the strawberry moon, and they can look for their birthday month and write down which moon they have. But it also tells us things like the full moon is when the moon can be seen as a complete disk. It is fully illuminated, occurring when it is opposite the sun. May's full moon was often called the milk moon. It was during May that cattle were moved to better pastures, and as a result, the quality of the milk improved. Again, I try and introduce your children to words like pastures and meadows rather than just green grass. Interesting pages on the moon's phases, and again, children really like to look this up in an encyclopedia. With me, you've got this all in one place. And they get to draw their own, and they get to talk about different parts of the moon, the crescent moon, new moon, full moon. And of course, all the different things that happen, eclipses, craters, and that man took off in a rocket ship called Apollo 2 and landed on July the 20th, 1969. This was the first space flight where humans landed on the moon. However, it wasn't until July the 21st when a man took his first steps on the moon. and we've got that famous quote by Neil Armstrong, that's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. So there we go. We have a comprehension, a moon comprehension, which is based on the fun fact file, and we've got important moon vocabulary so that they can be an astronaut for a day and use all that. I'm just trying to give you a rundown of what's available in this book to see if it is of interest to you, and I hope it is. Again, your astronaut, again, your poachers, where these animals are poached, where they come from, which I think is a very, very important part. And also very important to introduce our children to such horrible things, because it teaches them that it is bad and that people are doing this for very, very wrong reasons. And there's a quiz here, so they have to put the right animal in the right space from the information that they've just read. So it's very, very important that they do that. And I do say a poacher is a really bad human that kills animals for money and greed. They sell body parts of animals which are deemed to be the most valuable. So that's something I totally disagree with, and I will support immensely. Again, comprehensions galore and some maths. The younger version takes you through Key Stage 1. The older version takes you through Key Stage 2. They are different in terms of the language used and the exercises given, and you get answers at the back. So I do hope you will have enjoyed my general knowledge activity book on the moon. As I said, there will be one for each of the topics. My hero in all this is the man who does Planet Earth. And of course, he is amazing, and I watch his programs utterly enthralled. So please introduce your children to the Planet Earth programs, and particularly if you ever see the one on the wildebeest, please remember that's my favourite. And I just trailed these two wildebeest, mother and baby, all the way through the Exodus, and these wildebeest were all stamping on each other. The stampede was enormous, but these two that David Attenborough was following were literally just got there. And as he said, they're climbing up the hill now, oh they're slipping, oh they're climbing up the hill, they're getting to the top. You really did become very involved in that. If you get your children to love animals, you could love animals in the wild, animals in nature, you'll be giving them, you'll be doing them an enormous favour and giving them the right path for life. And that's what I'm trying to do through these books. And improve their English, and improve their writing, and improve their comprehension skills. So please join me on my YouTubes. I will be giving you lots of free books. I'll be giving you lots of free information. My next one should be on story writing, and I'll be giving some maths ones too soon. But there are a few others, how to help your children read, that are coming up. So stay with me and join me on my journey, and I hope you'll let me know if they are helpful to you and whether you are enjoying them. Thank you. Bye-bye.